Welcome to the Gentle Ledger. Today is Friday, February 13th, 2026. The market moved like a group chat that finally stopped typing, still present, still watching, but oddly careful with every word. Now let's turn softly to the U.S. indexes and begin with where the day actually settled. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 49,500.93, up 0.10%, a small lift like a chair being nudged back into place after yesterday's noise. The S&P 500 finished at 6,836.17, up 0.05%, almost unchanged in spirit, but gently supported by calmer rate expectations. The Nasdaq Composite ended at 22,546.67, down 0.22%, as the tech-heavy corner of the room stayed a touch more uneasy, and the Russell 2000, the smaller company pulse, rose to 2,646.70, up a brighter 1.18%, quietly suggesting that some risk appetite still exists, just redistributed. Gently moving into the corporate highlights, where individual names tell the market's story in more human tones. In semiconductors and AI-linked infrastructure, the day belonged to Applied Materials, which jumped plus 8.1% as investors leaned into its upbeat outlook and the sense that the AI build-out still has real physical demands, machines, tools, and capacity that can't be conjured from pure software. The optimistic echo carried into networking too, where Arista Networks gained plus 5.8%, a reminder that the picks and shovels of data movement can feel steadier than the more glamorous headlines. In healthcare, the mood brightened with earnings-driven relief. Dexcom climbed plus 8.4%, and Moderna rose plus 7.4%. Both moving with the kind of clean single-day clarity that earnings sometimes deliver, numbers landing, expectations adjusting. The narrative briefly simplified. In consumer and leisure, the tone darkened. Norwegian Cruise Line fell minus 7.6%, and the move felt less like a single headline and more like a reminder that travel and discretionary spending can still be treated as fragile when uncertainty returns. In online betting and gaming, DraftKings dropped minus 13.5%, a sharp repricing that carried the unmistakable feeling of guidance disappointment. One of those days where the market doesn't argue, it simply marks you down. Overseas, in Asia and Europe, the mood carried across gently, but with a slightly more cautious tilt than the U.S. close suggested. In Japan, the Nikkei slipped about minus 1.2%, moving as though the region absorbed the week's tech unease more directly. In China and Hong Kong, the softness was more pronounced. Hong Kong's Hang Seng fell around minus 1.7%, while mainland China's Shanghai Composite dropped roughly minus 1.3%, both reflecting a broader risk-off rhythm heading into the Lunar New Year holiday period, when liquidity thins, and conviction often does too. In Europe, the picture was restrained. The Stoxx 600 closed around minus 0.13%, a gentle fade rather than a fall. Across regions, it felt like the world was watching the U.S. for cues, warming slightly to the inflation print, but not fully relaxing into it. In commodities and bonds, the story shifted quietly into something calmer, heavier, and more foundational. Gold rose with conviction, climbing to around $5,022 an ounce, moving higher on the idea that softer inflation keeps rate cut hopes alive and makes non-yielding safety feel a bit more attractive. Oil was steadier, almost deliberately so. Brent ended near $67.75 a barrel, and WTI closed around $62.89, both slightly higher on the day as inflation relief outweighed lingering concerns about future supply. The bond market, meanwhile, took the inflation data as permission to breathe. The 10-year U.S. Treasury yield eased to about 4.05%, drifting lower in a way that often acts like a soft blanket over equities, especially anything sensitive to discount rates. Turning now to the newer corners of finance in crypto land, where sentiment has been trying to reassemble itself after a bruising stretch. Bitcoin traded near $69,050, rising sharply on the day, behaving less like a separate universe and more like a risk thermometer that briefly found warmer air. Ethereum hovered around $1,955, still subdued compared with Bitcoin's bounce, but moving in the same general direction. Cautious relief rather than celebration. And now, in a reflective summary and outlook, let's hold the day in just a couple of quiet thoughts. Today's market felt like stabilization rather than confidence, an attempt to find balance after a rougher, more unsettling session with inflation offering a small emotional reset. The indexes barely moved, but the internals told a clearer story. Healthcare and select AI infrastructure found support, while discretionary names and certain industrial materials carried the weight of doubt. If there was a single mood, it was restraint, less fear than yesterday, but still a shared awareness that narratives can change quickly, especially when technology becomes both the promise and the threat at the same time. Good night.